Hi, my name's Ryan Sands, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show. I'm from South Africa. My nickname is Hedgie.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome back, or welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the Gold Coast Marathon and Pogo Physio. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist by trade and training. Each week we'll bring you a range of episodes, including featured performers, expert editions, coaches' corners, and interest editions, all with the aim of educating and inspiring you towards your physical best performance. And on today's episode, we keep the running featured performer theme going from last week's episode featuring Meb Klavetsky, US marathon legend. And today we take the spotlight from the road to the trails, featuring one of the planet's hottest trail running stars, Ryan Sands. By way of bio, Ryan Sands in 2017 took out the coveted 100-mile Western States endurance run. This was 5 years after Ryan incidentally made his debut in that event in 2012, where he finished runner-up. Prior to that 2012 Western States endurance run debut, Ryan had taken out the coveted titles of the Leadville Trail 100-miler in 2011, had taken victory in the Sahara Desert Race in 2008, the Gobi March in 2008, was second in the 2009 Racing the Planet Namibia Desert Challenge, and was the winner of the 2008 Jungle Ultra Marathon held in Brazil, in which he set a new course record. In 2010, Ryan became the first competitor to have won all four of the coveted desert trail races, each a 6 to 7 day, 250 kilometre self-supported foot race. In addition to this, in 2008, Ryan and trail buddy Ryno Griesel set a new fastest known time across the Great Himalaya Trail, covering an astonishing 1,504 kilometres in 24 days, 4 hours and 24 minutes. In 2016, Ryan launched his autobiography, TrailBlazer, which has become a worldwide success. People are not only inspired by Ryan's athletic ability, but also his humble and down-to-earth approach to life. Ryan's a father and a dedicated family man, and at the time of recording was on the doorstep of his 2019 Western States Endurance Run 100-mile campaign. Here is my conversation with trail running star Ryan Sands. Ryan Sands, this is something I have been looking forward to for quite a while, and I know you've got a lot to inspire and share with the listeners of this show. So welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, great to be chatting. Thanks for having me on the show.
We talk about the highs, the lows, and the learnings, but before we dig into those, Ryan, I'd like to start with this. What's one thing that Ryan Sands is learning at the moment?
One thing that Ryan Sands is learning at the moment, I guess, is just to continually keep evolving as a person and an athlete. So kind of, I guess I've be trail running or ultra running for about 13 plus years now. So it's just trying to pick up small things that in training and preparation that can kind of maximize my gain. Because I guess with a lot of things, if you do the same thing kind of repeatedly, you kind of lose the gains from that. So it's just trying to, I guess, keep evolving and think outside the box a little bit.
And so that's great. I mean, your career, which we'll obviously throw to in a moment, started, I believe, professionally around maybe 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
So as you say, you've got a few good seasons in your legs now. Can you give any specific examples, Ryan, of how you are evolving, or specifically what you're doing to make those small gains?
Yeah, I guess it's like small stuff, like just with some of the strength training I'm doing, and even some of the strength training I'm planning. Just like next year, I want to have another like kind of focus or go at Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. But living in Cape Town, I guess we don't have the same scale of mountains that you get in Europe. So I'm just trying to look at like kind of with my coach, like look at ways to do some strength work in kind of say the off season, just to kind of toughen my quads up for those really long downhills that you only really seem to get in Europe. So yeah, I think also just like leading up to Western States now, just trying to do like kind of small things kind of on the strength side that can hopefully maximize my gain and performance going into races like kind of Western States, or as I mentioned, UTMB next year.
And Ryan, the strength side of it, is this something, I mean, as when I'm not moonlighting as a podcast host, I'm a full-time sports physiotherapist, and yes. Strength and conditioning is, I just think the linchpin of any runner's aspirations. Is this something you've always placed value and importance on, or is this something you've really just started to turn attention to as you're looking to extend your career and also, maximize your performance?
No, I think it's twofold. Like I've always put a lot of emphasis, maybe not necessarily say strength, but just being able to like move correctly. I guess with like a lot of running, you kind of tighten up certain areas. It's very like two-dimensional. So good strength work and like mobility work. And when I say strength work, it doesn't have to be lifting massive weights and stuff. Often it's just kind of just like your own weight resistance. I think it's just like I focus a lot on like good movements and good movement patterns and a lot of mobility work. I find like my hips and my ankles tend to tighten up quite a bit. So just, I guess, continually working on that. And I think it's important for longevity, but also like, I guess if you're just kind of consistent with doing that mobility and strength work, it keeps you injury free. And I guess one of the best ways I found to like improve as an athlete is just to be consistent and like have a continual kind of block of training, not kind of train for 2 months and then be injured for 2 months and then you kind of start again and kind of get injured in like a couple of months. So I think that kind of consistency is so important, especially for kind of having longevity in your career. So I've placed a lot of emphasis on especially like moving correctly and mobility. So a lot of the time now, I'll probably do like about 4 hours a week of mobility, especially like Sana's pre-run, just trying to be able to like move correctly. And I guess also the older I get, the more I find kind of having that good movement helps. And I guess I do tend to maybe stiffen up a little bit more now and kind of after having or not having a baby physically myself, but kind of having a young son. He's just under 3, kind of like picking him up and kind of playing around with him at times. I guess it do tend to stiffen up a bit, so that mobility and strength work definitely goes a long way.
Young children, they're great resistance. They're great weights, though, in many ways, aren't they? Where you are, you quickly realise your shortcomings as you're throwing them around in love, of course.
No, exactly.
Ryan, I do remember late nights changing nappies, doing exercises at times with my eldest daughter, thinking, "Oh, this is fun," but it was. It's a fun time. Ryan, so thank you for taking us there on the importance of that in terms of your performance. Before we go further on your accolades, which are extensive, and certainly you're well lauded in the trail running world and largely in the running world, but where did this all start for you? I think the story that I've researched is quite unique. You weren't, running from the age of 12 on the trails. You came to it at the end of your university time. So can you take us through the genesis story of Ryan Sands, the now professional, much-loved trail runner?
Yeah, so basically, as you mentioned, I guess in high school, we used to have inter-house cross-country, and I'd always find a way to bunk that and not do it. So I wasn't like a big fan of running. I played a lot of rugby at school, and like for me, like being generally a bit smaller than some of the other guys, I generally kind of had to make sure I was fitter than the rest of them. So I did a fair amount of kind of just running on my own and was generally quite fit. But then going to university, I didn't do any running or anything like that. It was only kind of last year at university. I had a whole bunch of friends running an out-of-town half marathon, but it was like quite a like festival marathon with lots of parties and stuff like that. And I always used to go up, but never used to kind of do anything. So I thought last year at university, kind of getting a bit more kind of professional and serious now, I better at least kind of go up and join the guys and run the half marathon. It was kind of like 3 or 4 weeks out, so the entries for the half marathons had already filled up, and there were only entries left for the full marathon. So without giving it too much thought, I thought kind of half marathon, full marathon, same, and actually entered it. A lot of my friends laughed at me and thought like I wasn't going to finish with kind of only having 4 weeks or so to train. But I managed to get through the marathon, and a lot of the marathon was in a forest and kind of on kind of district roads. Immediately I got hooked on that after just, I guess, running a marathon and not knowing if I was actually going to be able to finish it, and just that like sense of achievement definitely hooked me. And then also just being able to run out in the forest was definitely like that appeal to me. And after the marathon came back to Hart Bay, kind of as a town just on the back slopes of Table Mountain where I live, and joined a local running club, and from there really quickly kind of got into trail running. A lot of the guys were into trail running, and before I knew it, I was kind of running a whole bunch of local races. And then I guess I've always been an all or nothing person, and it was about after like a year or so, I was kind of just Googling extreme trail races, and up popped the Four Deserts website, and I saw Dean Karnazes was running it. I just read his book, and I was really inspired, and I thought, flip, let me enter this, let me enter one of these races as well. And so I entered the Gobi Desert Race. I think that was in 2008. To be honest, I actually didn't actually know where the Gobi Desert was until I'd entered and started doing a bit of research. So a lot of it was unknown for me, but like as I mentioned, I think for me, I've always been an all or nothing person, and just like kind of the thought of doing a crazy kind of adventure like a kind of 250k race through the Gobi Desert really excited me. And I guess for me, like why I've kind of been trail running for so long, and why it's kind of, I see it as more than just a sport. It's more of a lifestyle. It's just that kind of sense of adventure, being able to travel and get out into kind of wild and open places, and just really kind of be in the moment, and kind of, I guess, I feel when I'm kind of running out in the trails and the mountains, just I guess everything like slows down, the world slows down, and you get to kind of like just focus a bit more on the present. I find in general everything's so busy, so that's kind of a form of meditation for me when I'm out running on the trails.
Wow, so much there. I mean, as you say, you're an all or nothing type of individual. Where do you think that came from?
Yeah, I guess maybe from my mom's side, my grandfather, her father. He was kind of, I guess, a bit like that, like a kind of all or nothing, kind of live for the moment and make the most of things. So I guess maybe I'm a bit like that. But I guess also I think like naturally I've always been like fairly competitive, and I wouldn't say maybe necessarily competitive with other people. I think it's more with myself and wanting to do the best I can do. I guess it's just about like challenging myself, and at times setting these crazy goals and going out and seeing if I can actually achieve them.
Yeah, and I mean, and certainly you have achieved some amazing things. I'm stuck on thinking about your mates at university who, you guys entered this out of town, fairly social marathon, and you ran off very little training, through the forest as well, like a 3:13. And what do these mates say now? Now you've gone on to have a professional running career, one of the most lauded in the trail running world. What do they say?
Yeah, no, a couple of them kind of, especially I think like a lot of mates at university, they're probably like a little bit closer to my professional career. They kind of saw the progression, but I got a lot of mates from school who kind of knew me at school, and definitely running wasn't my thing, and kind of they kind of see me and think like, geez, what happened? Like, how did you do this? So I guess for me it's been a pretty crazy and surreal journey. Definitely, like if you'd told me last year at school I was gonna become a professional trail runner, I would have kind of asked you what you smoking. Definitely nothing kind of I ever thought I would do. But I guess that's the cool thing with life, just kind of having that journey and just kind of being open to everything. As like you mentioned, I do like I'd see some of my university mates and even schoolmates now, and they're like, geez, like we can't believe it. We kind of stuck in the corporate world, and here you kind of cruising around the world, kind of running in all these epic locations.
It's absolutely a brilliant story. And you know, when you said you started in that local Table Mountain trail running club or the scene, how's that changed over the last 12, 13 odd maybe more years?
I guess when I first started trail running, I want to say it's about 2006. It was very kind of small and quite niche and quite cliquey. Whereas now it's definitely grown and there's a really strong community that's been built in Cape Town, and the trail running scene has grown to like all walks of life, which is really cool to see. And just spending a lot of time on Table Mountain. Some people may not like this. I know some people like to kind of go onto the mountain and not see anyone, but I've definitely started seeing a lot more people on the mountain and all types of people, which kind of really excites me. That kind of trail running is kind of being spread to the masses. But then at the same time, I think like the trail running community we've got here in Cape Town is really awesome and magical. And I think that's something for me is kind of so important and something that kind of really inspires me on a daily basis to keep doing what I'm doing is because of like say my local trail running community. Like looking back now, like it's not like kind of major race wins or kind of good race results that stand out. It's often like those kind of personal moments that I've spent on the trails with kind of sometimes complete strangers or just the trail community and just kind of with mates having a good time, or even just kind of going for a run with T-Dog, our dog on the trails. I think those are the moments that stand out to me and that I think are so important. So having a trail running community and seeing it grow in Cape Town has been really amazing. And just like going around the world, I think being able to go to say San Fran and kind of join that trail community, or going to Vancouver or even kind of Sydney or wherever, it's been really, really cool to see all the various communities grow. I was in Australia earlier this year, and I hadn't been there for about 2 or 3 years. And just to see, like, even I went and joined the Blue Running Mountain Club for a community run, and just to see how quickly these, like the various communities had grown in the space of 2 or 3 years is really cool to see it and really inspiring, and it kind of makes you realize kind of just how powerful and impactful that the sport is.
Yeah, it's certainly, I've heard you reference, Ryan, that it's, one of few endeavours where you can really engage with nature. I've heard you say surfing, which is one of your pastimes and still hobbies to this day, I believe. You really are, and if anyone's ever run a trail, it is very different to engaging with the road. It is pure, and it really does strip away all the distractions of modern life. What do you think's been fueling this interest and growth in trail running? Yeah,
I think a lot of it is that interaction with nature and just getting out into the wilderness. I think in modern day life with cell phones and like constantly being connected, and I guess kind of I started off like my professional career as a quantity surveyor. So like even like working in corporate, I think now it must be even more difficult just in terms of like, if people send you an email on Friday afternoon, they kind of still expect a response on Saturday, even though you're possibly not working, or people like are phoning you or contacting you the whole time. I know like with stuff like social media, it keeps you very busy. And I guess it doesn't just like give you a chance to kind of switch off, where I think trail running and just kind of being in that, having that connection with nature is just so, it's just so relaxing and so kind of good for the soul, and that's why I kind of describe trail running and surfing as very similar in terms of it's one of the few kind of sports or disciplines where you have that direct connection to nature. It's just about kind of going out and having a run and kind of running up a mountain or kind of running on a trail, and it's just you and the trail, and it's the same as surfing when you paddle out and you kind of duck dive through a few waves. It's just you sitting in the water waiting for a wave. I think it's kind of got very strong properties and definitely kind of allows you to kind of switch off and relax, which I think so many people crave.
And Ryan, your sporting genes, you mentioned that you feel you're all or nothing mindset or wiring may have been attributed to your mother and beyond. But what about your sporting genes? Where have these come from?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. No, my mom actually at school was quite a good swimmer, and then my dad ran a couple of marathons in his early years. But I must have got my genes somewhere there from my mom and dad. But yeah, I think also I think the cool thing with running, and especially like ultras and any endurance sport, it's obviously a big physical element to it, but also the mental element. So and also I think just enjoying it and being kind of passionate about something kind of allows you to be like a lot more successful. So I guess I'd like to think I'm physically kind of gifted, but I also know from a mental side of things, just kind of really kind of loving what I've been doing and kind of being able to kind of travel to the cool places I have over the past 10 or 12 years and kind of meet so many amazing people. That's definitely kind of inspired me to keep kind of trying to push those boundaries and think outside the box and kind of keep evolving.
And on the evolution, the pushing boundaries, improving performance, prolonging career, it's all the sort of pointing to the one thing. It seems to me from the outside looking in, Ryan, that you're very strategic about, as you said earlier, you're competitive with yourself. The results then take care of themselves, but you want to put your foot on a start line and give it the best you can. What I found so interesting in preparing for today was watching one of the Red Bull documentaries put out about you called Dedicate the 100 Miles Out West, which chronicled your Western States victory, emphatic victory in 2017. And there was a still shot in there of you reading a book which I believe was titled Challenging Beliefs by Professor Tim Noakes. And I just thought it was amazing the words that he'd written in the book. To Ryan, well done on all your amazing races. Thanks for being such an inspiration. Future Western States champion. Best regards. So a couple of things there. I mean, you were reading a book, Challenging Beliefs. So this is obviously something that you do the work on as much as you do the work on the physical side.
Someone like Professor Tim Noakes has always been, I've really kind of looked up to him and he's helped me along the way. Even I mentioned the first kind of ultra race I did was the Gobi Desert Race. And for me, that was just like a once-off thing, like a once-off opportunity to go and have a crazy adventure. And then it went really, really well. So I managed to get some sponsorship to do another race in the 4 Desert Series later that year, the Sahara Desert Race. And it was kind of preparing for that race that I got in contact with Professor Tim Noakes and was just trying to pick his brain about kind of how to prepare for the heat, because the Sahara Desert Race is crazy hot. I think when we were there, the temperatures were in the low 50s degrees Celsius. I was about 51, 52 on some of the days, and preparing for it, I was in it I needed to prepare during the Cape Town winter, which obviously was not nearly kind of as hot as what you get in the Sahara. So he allowed me to train in an environmental chamber where you could actually control the heat and humidity, and you run in a treadmill in like a kind of it's just like a single room. And I think just kind of working with him and on that, it was a massive help going into the Sahara race, just being able to prepare properly. And then just, I guess, kind of having Professor Tim Noakes' guidance along my career, and also kind of just chatting to him. I've always, kind of really looked up to him. And also, I guess I just kind of enjoy kind of reading up stuff about how to improve performance or people's theories and stuff. And I think, like, with all of that, I find it's quite important to kind of read as much as possible and take it in, but then to like formulate your own theories and see what works for you, because kind of what works for you necessarily won't work for me in training or kind of nutrition wise. I know some people kind of have said to me kind of, what's your nutrition plan? Like, if I copy that exactly, then I'm going to be successful. And I'm like obviously trying to explain to people that's not going to be the case. Everyone's like an individual, and you got to figure out what works for you. But I find kind of gaining as much knowledge is really helpful and insightful. Even kind of more currently, like I find kind of like mobility work and moving correctly to be really interesting. So just kind of, I guess, on Instagram, watching different videos and or reading up different theories, I find it very interesting. But you have to figure like what works for you.
I heard you reference two words with some fair regularity around your mindset, how you approach the psychological demands of, these ultras and arduous events. And the two words that seem to come up a lot are staying relaxed, be relaxed, and to remain positive. So can you speak to each of those terms and practically how they help you endure the rigors of the events and pull off the results that you do?
Yeah, I think kind of staying relaxed is really important, and maybe something I've been pretty good at. I'm generally quite a laid back, chill person. And I think for like kind of ultra running, or I guess anything in life, it's about just kind of staying relaxed and trying to think on your feet and not kind of over panicking or overthinking things. And during an ultra race, things always go wrong. I've never had an ultra race where things go 100% perfectly. I've kind of realized that often the people are the most successful are not necessarily sometimes the fittest or the best prepared, but the people that can kind of think the best on their feet and kind of just relax and think it through. And I think that's crucial. As I mentioned, things like you can have a set structural plan for an ultra race or even a long training run, or kind of doesn't have to be trail running. It can be anything in life, but you're going to rock up to work in the morning and have a set structure, and then suddenly something's going to go wrong or change, and you just have to be calm and collected and think on your feet. And then from that, just trying to stay positive as well. I think that's crucial, and I kind of preach that, but there are times when I haven't been positive, and I definitely find generally like you can like physically go through like a low patch, and if you can stay positive, you kind of get through that low patch, and you can kind of ride it out or run it out. But if you kind of, I find like if I kind of mentally kind of go into a negative patch, then everything just falls apart. Like physically I feel worse, and it's really hard to kind of get things back on track. So trying to stay positive and just kind of trying to use a little tricks to stay positive. And for me, I always try and just focus on like, I'm the person who's chosen to be here. Like when you're out in a 100-mile race and you 80 miles in and kind of things aren't so fun anymore. I'm the one who's chosen to be there. So it's up to me to kind of get myself out of this and just to kind of stay positive. And I guess also just running in some pretty cool like natural environments, like really kind of keep me positive. I guess if I was kind of head down and on a road, it might be a little bit different for me, and that's why I've always gravitated towards the trails. But yeah, just going back to staying positive, I think it's so important. And I guess just in general kind of life, just to try and kind of see the glass is half full and not half empty is really important. Because yeah, I guess like touched on it earlier, but I think like mentally, like your mental attitude is so important for ultra running and life in general.
And to recapture what you just shared there about staying positive, some of those little tricks which does, as you say, Ryan, extend beyond the trail running world to life, but to recognise it's your choice.
Yes.
In this instance, to suffer. It's not always a choice when things happen. But in terms of entering the race and to be aware of your surroundings, which has so many different contexts to the wider application, doesn't it? So that they're great tips on remaining positive. What role has your family, your young son Max, who you mentioned is on the south side of turning 3, how has being a dad changed your psychology and I guess how you show up in the world?
Yeah, I think it's been huge in terms of, I guess, being completely honest. I was maybe worried, like pre-having Max, that maybe kind of my performance or kind of stuff like that would take a knock. And obviously kind of having a baby, as you'll know, you don't get to sleep as much as you'd maybe like to over the first couple of months, or even, I guess, first couple of years. But I think kind of just before I had Max, I want to say just before, in 2015, I had glandular fever, which really knocked me and definitely kind of was a really kind of low patch me. And 2015 was a real struggle. And then having Max in 2016, I started to kind of turn things around, and I was like physically and mentally feeling kind of had like fully recovered after the glandular fever. But I think kind of just having Max gave me a lot of perspective in terms of that, yeah, sure, kind of I'm a professional athlete and that's what I do, but it's also just to kind of enjoy the small things in life and not put too much pressure on myself. As I said, I'm very competitive with myself. So I think at times I was putting too much pressure on myself and took the actual enjoyment out of trail running. And I think for me, I've realized that I've been successful as a trail runner is because I'm so passionate about it and I enjoy it. If I kind of lose that enjoyment, then kind of I don't perform. And I think just having Max in the term was quite liberating in terms that you kind of realize that he just wants you to be a good dad. He doesn't care if you win a race or kind of go out and break a whole bunch of Strava records. Yeah, he just wants to kind of play with you or kind of for you to take him for a walk with his bicycle or something like that. So I think that was quite cool to realize that cool, trail running is a big deal, but it's actually not such a big deal. It's kind of more important to be a good dad and then that's why I think I go back to kind of our trail running community in Cape Town and just the various communities I've like experienced. Like often, like you'll meet people in the community or like a community run, and they're like, oh, like so inspired by you. But it's almost like I feel like I'm more inspired by them in terms of I find like just kind of seeing how just kind of I don't know. There've been times when you're kind of going through a low moment and you join a community run or a group run, and you just see how stoked everyone is to get onto the trails, and it just makes you realize that cool, maybe your performance is slightly down at the moment, but you're still able to run on the trails and you're still able to follow your passion and your dream, and I think that's really important to keep like remembering, and that's what kind of keeps me grounded and kind of focused and positive.
As you were getting closer to winning your first, your Western States title there in 2017, 5 years after finishing runner-up back in 2012, what thoughts were you having about your family and seeing Max at the finish line? Were you keenly anticipating getting there? And then what did they do when they saw you? As Max, as you say, Max didn't give you a special kiss because you just won. You just dad to him.
No, it was like, as I say, I don't think for me, from a kind of competitive side, has definitely like been the highlight of my career. Just I guess the whole build-up, actually, because Max was so young then. My mom actually joined us for the trip out to the US. So just to have kind of Vanessa, my wife, Max, my son, and my mom out there that day supporting was definitely massive. And I remember 1 or 2 aid stations kind of running into, and just being able to see them there was really kind of huge, and just kind of, I guess, gave me that kind of physical boost that you kind of need when you kind of on the edge in for a 100-miler. So to have them there, as I said, I don't think I'll ever be able to better that kind of from a sporting or kind of competitive point of view, because it was quite a slow year. When I won in 2017 with the snow and the heat, I think Max was kind of shame. I think he was kind of battling to stay awake. I think I took too long. I think he was getting cheesed off. It was pretty surreal just to kind of be able to hug Max and Vanessa there at the end and have my mom there. Is definitely something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
You're listening to Ryan Sands, trail running sensation, sharing around the highs, the lows, and the learnings of his career to date. Support for today's show comes from the Gold Coast Marathon. Just like the Physical Performance Show, the Gold Coast Marathon encourages runners of all ages and abilities to push their boundaries and strive to complete a personal challenge. The Gold Coast Marathon is held annually on the first weekend in July and is a must-do event for any budding athlete, weekend warrior, or family looking for a challenge to complete together. Run for the good times at the Gold Coast Marathon. Visit goldcoastmarathon.com.au. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio. We exist to help you get back to your physical best following injury. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to complete their rehabilitation, get back to their physical best, and in doing so, cross their physio finish line. In addition to traditional session-to-session, pay-as-you-go appointments, we offer some industry-first, unique and very popular fixed fee services, including our monthly wellness booster rehab packs, which include hands-on physiotherapy, active rehabilitation, and use of state-of-the-art equipment, including the AlterG anti-gravity treadmill and the Normatec recovery boots, all from a low $195 per month. To find out more about Pogo Physio and our unique services, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. For now, let's jump back with South African trail running sensation Ryan Sandys on this featured performer episode. What does life look like for you at the moment in terms of training, Ryan? What's the sort of the volume looking like and the efforts? What's the sort of typical week structure for you right now?
Yeah, so I'm currently trying to, I guess I found what works best for me is to kind of be as consistent as possible with training, but then I'm not someone that does a huge volume of training. I used to do a lot more volume of training. I think now I was just trying to be a bit more smart and kind of also focus a lot, making sure I recover as much as possible. So currently, this week, I'm going to be doing 100 miles or 160, 170 kilometers. And a lot of it will be quite race specific. So nothing too short and sharp, but more just kind of long sustained efforts. Some stuff at kind of Western States race pace, just to try and kind of get dialed into the race as much as possible. So that I'll do that for the next 2 weeks and then actually travel over to Western States 2 and a bit weeks beforehand, just to kind of acclimatize, get used to the altitude, and then also just to train a bit on the course. But when I'm kind of currently also trying to do a little bit of stuff, say in the sauna, just to kind of adapt to the heat a bit or try and run midday. Luckily, the weather's still pretty decent in Cape Town. Kind of the cold winter hasn't quite kicked in, so I'm still able to get a bit of running out in the sun, and it hasn't been too cold. But I think the closer as I mentioned, I get to a race, the more race specific stuff I try and do. But then also in the past, I've tended to do some very big volumes and then have a big taper going into the race, where now I find to be a little bit more consistent is better and have less of a taper. So instead of doing any massive peaks in my training, just to kind of keep that kind of curve a bit more kind of level and then not kind of drop off or taper as much towards the end. And
you mentioned race pace there, a lot of work, that sort of race pace for the 100 miler. How do you quantify that as a trail runner? Are you looking at kilometers an hour, or mile splits, or are you mainly going on heart rate data? What are you looking at objectively to gauge that out?
No, it's quite a good point, and it's always tricky because even training in general, I'm kind of if I was training for a more mountainous race, I'd probably be more focused on hours and elevation gain. Whereas something for Western States, I know it's fairly runnable, and I kind of know, looking at what I've done in the past, what I need to do, so I can kind of work it out into kilometers. But then I'm trying to find terrain that's quite specific to Western States, so a lot more kind of runnable trails. And on those trails, sometimes I'll look a bit at and gauge the pace I'm running at to try and kind of relate it back to Western States. But with it trail running, it's quite up and down. So a lot of it is based on effort, perceived effort. I don't go according to heart rate. It's more just kind of how I'm feeling.
Yeah, perception of effort, which is undeniable. It can't be argued, can it? Your perception is your reality.
No.
Fantastic. Are you a paper journaler, or are you pure digital, looking at Strava, etc., for looking at your volumes?
No, digital. So actually, I kind of put most of my stuff on Training Peaks. I find that's really, really kind of helped. And I only started doing that about 3 years ago, where before that, I kind of had stuff in spreadsheets, but I kind of lost all of it. I wasn't that big on tracking my training, where now I was kind of, even, I guess, just going to Western States this year, I kind of looked back at 2017 and what I did in training and just try to kind of pick up on things. But it's also, I guess, I try and not replicate things too much and be too rigid. As I mentioned, I'm a different athlete to what I was in 2017, you just constantly changing, and you're never going to be like taking the exact same model and kind of trying to do it 3 years later necessarily won't work. I think for me, it's really important to stay in tune with your body and know that, cool, maybe in 2017, I did 2 massive weeks, but I can feel now that kind of I need like a bit more recovery. So I think it's so important to stay in tune with your body, and that's why I don't go that much on kind of heart rate. It's more perceived effort, and just I find that also enables me to stay in tune with my body and not to like just look at my watch and say, oh, it's 180 beats, I need to slow down. Like for me, it's more important just to kind of like know when I'm pushing and when I'm kind of taking it easy and kind of how I'm feeling.
Yeah, perception of effort. Ryan, before we jump over to some learnings and the performance round, what's been the darkest day of your career?
Just darkest day of my career, maybe in UTMB 2015, as when I was kind of had glandular fever and I dropped out of UTMB. It was actually the same year I went over to Western States and got a stomach bug just before the race, and was just like man down. I couldn't do anything, and then I thought, cool, I'll kind of try and put that effort and use that training and focus on UTMB, and then ended up dropping out of UTMB just with the glandular fever. And I think after that, mentally I was really, really down, and it was definitely kind of low point of my career. And to be honest, I thought like, flip, maybe this is it. Like this is the end of my career. And I really wasn't like enjoying, even I think leading up to UTMB, I was trying to force the training quite a bit. And it's almost like after UTMB, I realized like I just had to like take a complete step back, and I kind of didn't have like on my kind of, I guess, race schedule, I didn't have like any races. I just said, cool, I'm kind of stopping running completely now, and I'll start up when I feel like running again. And it was just about kind of getting back to the pure like love of running, and I'd kind of go out and do a 10-minute run, and if I was enjoying myself, I'd go for a bit longer. If I wasn't, I would kind of just stop it right there. And I feel that kind of really helped me bounce back. I think as I mentioned, it's just like the mental side of things. I was kind of, it was really cool just to see how quickly you can kind of turn things around when like mentally you just let go. I felt before like mentally I was like holding on to too many things and just putting too much pressure on myself. And just after UTMB, like as I say, like mentally I went through like a really bad patch for like 2 months or so. But when I managed to let go of that and just kind of get back to the pure kind of enjoyment of running, things started to turn around. It was quite weird that even my blood results were just like really bad the whole year. And then as soon as like mentally I was in a good space, like those like just like improved overnight. And I don't know if that was just like coincidence or if it kind of relates back to kind of being in a good headspace.
Wow. And the fear of it being the end of your career, was it because you, at that point when you pulled out, you didn't know what was wrong, you hadn't been diagnosed with glandular fever, that you thought you would having more than a bad day, that this was you no longer being competitive? Is that what the thinking was?
Yeah, I knew I had glandular fever, actually, and like picked up early that year, but it was weird. Like, it's quite difficult because I think with glandular fever, like I had all the testing done, and the kind of, it was out of my system. Like my blood showed that the Epstein-Barr virus wasn't there anymore. It always kind of sits in your system, but it's just dormant. But I think kind of for the average person, like I think there's a big difference between just kind of being like generally healthy and kind of focusing on performance and getting your body to kind of perform to the best of its capability. Whereas with I think that the glandular fever was still like in my system. So like I'd feel fine on runs. It was more like after 4 or 5 hours when I was kind of like in a race condition, and when I started to push that it would start to affect me. So yeah, I was kind of concerned because I had heard stories about people never being able to kind of recover fully from glandular fever, and that being the end of their career. So that was my concern, that cool, I'd still be able to run and enjoy things, but to be able to kind of run and perform to the best of my ability, I was concerned that was kind of not going to be able to happen again. So I think kind of, as I mentioned, like mentally, when I just kind of switched off from it all and just said, cool, if I can never perform to the best of my ability, that's fine. Just kind of make sure you enjoy running again. When I was able to kind of do like process that mentally and change that mentally, like physically, I seemed to kind of bounce back.
If you missed last week's episode 165, featuring US marathoning star Meb Klavetsky, then here's a little snippet of what you missed.
Two things stand up. I think it was 2007, November of 2007, when I didn't make the Olympic team. And that put it in perspective. My good friend Ryan Shea, who you can read more in the book, that a good friend of mine that trained in San Diego and Mammoth, passed away of cardiac arrest. That kind of mentally, physically, and emotionally, that was tough. The other time probably would have been when I was let go by Nike, and here you are, a New York champion and silver medalist. You think somebody would pick you up, but nobody picked me up, and I went for until August 1st with no contract. Of Skechers signed me up. But when I rode the 26 marathons, it's not only about running, but life is full of curves that you never know what's coming around the corner. And I'm trying to adjust what I learned to the marathon to my real life.
To enjoy the full episode featuring Meb Klavetsky, simply jump over to your favourite podcast player and enjoy away. While there, don't forget to peruse the archives of the show, dating right back to episode 1 featuring surf lifesaving Ironman champion Ali Day. For now, let's jump back with the highs, lows and learnings of this week's featured performer, Ryan Sands. Ryan, let's jump into a performance round. Are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yeah.
Here we go. Training session you most dislike?
Maybe like intervals, short intervals.
Training session you most love?
I guess like a medium run with a bit of like kind of tempo thrown in there.
Favorite pre-race meal?
Favorite pre-race meal? Probably like a pizza or a hamburger.
Bedtime and morning time, what do they look like?
Morning time is definitely coffee is the first thing that comes to mind. And bedtime, I guess, I try and do a bit of reading and stuff just to relax and kind of wind down from the day, or kind of switch off a bit, or spend a bit of time with Vanessa after Max has gone to bed.
Who is the athlete that Ryan Sands most admires and why?
I guess like Bruce Fordyce, I really look up to him, just what he's achieved and being South African and having won 9 Comrades races. And then someone else more recently, a teammate of mine, is Kilian Jornet. Just obviously his athletic performance is crazy, but just having known him for like the last 11 years, just seeing him as a person, he's never changed or never got like too full of himself. He's just like an amazing person. He's always got time for everyone. So I think he's someone I really aspire to.
And is he SMSing you for advice as a parent?
Not yet. I think he's got it all under control.
Oh, great. Toughest competitor you've ever raced, Ryan? Who is that and why?
Yeah, I guess Kilian Jornet. Again, just I think he's absolutely incredible. And also someone like Timothy Olsen. When I came second in Western States 2012. I was having the best kind of day of my life out there, and Timmy was to kind of having an even better day. Just kind of, he's just kind of. I remember his 2 Western States wins, just how deep he went and how hard he pushed things was just absolutely mind blowing. Is
there a mantra that you use when you're racing? Some regular bit of self-talk?
It kind of varies a bit, but I think just going back to kind of trying to focus on the positive, and like again, I'm the fool that's got myself here, so let me get myself out of this.
Your best recovery tip?
I think is sleep, or like cold water. I live close to the ocean, so I often go and try and just get in the water. I think it's more just it resets your whole system. So it's, and I find that really good and chills me out to recover. But I think, sleep is definitely the win.
One word to describe your racing style.
One word to describe my racing style. Probably like a bit of a diesel engine. Takes me a while to get going.
Diesel. How would you describe Ryan being in the zone?
Definitely be kind of, I guess, pretty like animal-like, or kind of very like focused and just kind of, I guess kind of quite primal.
And when was the last time you were in that zone?
Last time I was in that zone would have been in March at an Elephant 50 miler.
Ryan, last question in the performance round. You've done really well. What's the hardest training session you've ever done?
Hardest training session? Probably some of my early training sessions for the multi-day races. So just like running with a like 10 to or 8 to 10 kg backpack on, kind of in the middle of summer with a jacket on and like sweating it out and just trying to prepare for a desert race. That was really difficult. And then also especially for me, because I like when I entered the Gobi Desert Race, it was a 250k race, and before that, the longest race I'd done was a marathon. So just trying to kind of get my body used to that kind of distance was definitely, like, looking back, training for the Gobi Desert Race was some of the hardest training that I've ever had to do.
So we won't see you out there now doing similar training methods. It's changed.
Yeah, no, it's evolved a little bit.
It's evolved. There's that word that you use, evolution. Fantastic, mate. Well done. You can chalk that up. It's morning time over there in Table Mountain, so you can chalk that up as a training session for the day. Well done. Ryan, if you could boil everything you've learnt to date from your career into one piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would that one bit of advice be?
I think a lot of it, like, just staying relaxed and I'd say keeping things simple. I think we as humans tend to overcomplicate things. So definitely just trying to, like, keep things simple and see what works for you. Don't kind of, I know a lot of people, like, he says this, she says this, and kind of before you know it, there's just like so much information. And also with kind of modern day technology, like you switch on the internet or you look at Instagram, it's just like never ending kind of information. So I think it's just kind of trying to shut that out and just kind of focus, or just keep it simple and figure out what works for you. And in a weird way, I often find some of the kind of best athletes are probably not the, like, most intelligent people. It's almost like the people that just don't really care about all the other stuff, and they can just, like, focus on purely kind of what works for them. I think sometimes you find people that they're quite intelligent and really like to read up and, like, overanalyze things and study things. It's almost like it becomes a bit, like, too complicated and it, like, kind of can become a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You use that word overwhelming, and that's what was popping into my mind with that overanalysis and the overwhelm. And there is such beauty in simplicity. So, Ryan, that's powerful. Keep it simple. Yeah. Ryan, every guest, featured performer in this instance, yourself, of the Physical Performance Show, issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So, what is Ryan Sands' physical challenge to listeners for the week going to be?
Physical challenge for the week, I think I'd say get out for a trail run, or say a 5K trail run if you're not a trail runner, and just to kind of experience it and enjoy it. And if you, as I say, if you don't come from a trail running background, don't, like, worry if you're on the trail and you got to hike certain sections. That's part of it. So I think just kind of get out for a trail run and just to experience it and enjoy it, and possibly don't take your watch with you. Just kind of go out and enjoy it and just kind of be present.
That's terrific. So if you do take that on, do be sure to let Ryan know. And with that, practically, Ryan, there's a lot that you're across the 13 peaks. Can you speak to that for a moment? Explain the Table Mountain 13 peaks and how people can get involved and find out more. Yeah,
so there is a website that's up and running now. It's 13peaks.co.za. Basically it's you start and finish at Signal Hill, which is quite an iconic part of Table Mountain, and you do a big loop and you got to tag 13 peaks along the way, and then you finish back at Signal Hill. And for me, it started off just as, like, a fun little personal challenge, and I actually didn't realize it was that far. I thought I kind of plotted it out on a notepad, and I thought it would be about kind of 50 kilometers. Ends up being like about 108 kilometers, and so I definitely didn't draw it to scale. But it was a really cool personal challenge that I did with a mate, Kane. We actually didn't even get to tag the last peak because it had kind of gotten really late and dark. But I thought, like, we had such an epic day out, it'd be really cool to create something and also just showcase Table Mountain and the Cape Peninsula. You really get to see some iconic parts of the mountain. So I created the 13 Peaks Challenge. So basically there's a one-day challenge if you want to try do it in 24 hours, a 2-day challenge if you want to try do it in 48 hours, and then a multi-day challenge so people can hike it. You don't have to run it. and that you've got as much time as you want to do it. You can do it over like a year, multiple weeks, etc. And your time starts and stops when you leave and enter the route. So that's a little bit different. So it's been really cool to see how many people have kind of taken up the challenge, and also not just necessarily trail runners. It's just people wanting to get out and explore Table Mountain and get a kind of be able to see Cape Town in quite a unique and different way.
And I know you're passionate about your place of origin and your city, Cape Town. And so, what a great way to put it on the map even more than it is.
Yeah, no, as I say, it's been really cool to see how it's progressed, and also, the interest from international people. I definitely think it's an amazing way to come and see Cape Town. It almost reminds me a little bit of a lot of people do the tour of Mont Blanc, or kind of these long hiking trails where I think 13 Peaks is definitely, you can do it over 3 or 4 days and kind of stay in the towns in between the kind of various mountain sections. So I think I'm really excited and hopefully can kind of continue growing it and showcase Cape Town and Table Mountain to the rest of the world, and also just kind of local people, get them out in the mountain.
And other projects, things that excite you, what else have you got coming up, Ryan?
Yeah, so working on a project on the Skeleton Coast with Red Bull. So I want to run the length of the Skeleton Coast. So it's about 700 kilometers, which I'm looking to try and do at the end of the year. Still just working on a few permissions and stuff like that. But excited about that. Namibia kind of is a country just above South Africa, and the Skeleton Coast is kind of quite a rugged coast, there's like a lot of shipwrecks on there, and kind of the Portuguese sailors call it like the land god made in anger. It's quite as I say, like very rugged and hostile, but at the same time really beautiful. So I'm pretty also just kind of competing on the international trail running circuit for the last 12, 13 years or so. I really kind of on a personal mission to explore more of Africa, or more of even Southern Africa. So for me, being able to go and kind of run and explore the Skeleton Coast is something I'm really excited about.
And my father just, if he heard correctly, he's visited Namibia and that famous left-hand surf break. And is it true that Skeleton Coast is lined up because when the swells come in, it looks like the ribs? Or is this way off? Ribs of an animal?
No, it does. No, there are sections like that, that does look like ribs of an animal. But there are a lot of shipwrecks, and there also are they're like sections of the beach where they've got like whales and stuff have come onto the beach, and there's just like their kind of rib cages that are left on the beach. So just these skeletons, but also when I know that there are a couple of really good surf breaks out there. So when the kind of when the swell's hitting it, that does look a bit like the kind of ribs of an animal.
So you'll have to put blinkers on as a surfer as well, Ryan. As you're running down that coast, you'll be looking at some pretty epic lineups, I imagine. So you might not be looking at FKT, fastest known time for that, hey?
No. Yeah, no, exactly. No, the cool thing is obviously it's been taking a while to put it all together, but with the Skeleton Coast run, I'm going to be running really high up north, so a lot of that land is actually private. So I think there'll be a lot of surf breaks that I'll see there that necessarily haven't been surfed before.
Fantastic. Ryan, final 2 quick questions here. The most important thing in life is?
The most important thing in life, I think, is to have peace of mind and be happy.
And what mistakes are you afraid of making?
I guess it's like having not done something. I'd rather try something and fail than kind of look back when I'm kind of 70 years old and think like, flip, I should have done that, and that. So, I think it's kind of not doing something kind of is kind of what scares me.
Ryan Sandes, thank you for your time today, your contribution, the highs, the lows, the learnings, and certainly myself and the listeners, we wish you all the best for 2019 and beyond with what we know will be some fantastic results and memories, moments created.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, it was really good to chat and catch up.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I know that you will have enjoyed the humble and very talented Ryan Sandes sharing around his highs, lows, and career learnings to date. If you did, then please let Ryan know. You'll find Ryan easily over on social media at Ryan Sandes, Sandes, and drop Ryan a message to let him know what it was that you took away from his sharings today. Whilst there, you can also tag in the show in a podsy, a screenshot if you like, of the episode that you're enjoying at any given point in time. The handle for the show at Physical Performance Show over on Instagram. I'm readily found there at Brad_Beer, and I always love getting feedback on what it is that you're enjoying or learning from the show, and also any feedback or suggestions on how the show can be made better. Massive thanks to those who have been hitting subscribe from within your favorite podcast player. That really is the best way for the show to grow, and it also shores up each and every episode landing in your earbuds each and every week as we go live. Massive thanks to those leaving reviews over on iTunes, and in particular this week to Trav_Will. Trav rated the show 5 stars and commented, "Only recently started listening to podcasts due to excessive driving, but I certainly won't be stopping listening once the driving requirements stop. I can't get enough of the expert editions, from diet to biomechanics, injury prevention, rehab and exercises to improve not just exercise, but life. I love it." Professor Stuart McGill was the standout. Keep up the great work, team. As an idea, maybe a guest specialising in how to talk about running with colds and flus and when not to train would be a great idea. Trav, thank you for taking the time to leave that review. And if you would like to leave a review, iTunes is the place to do so. Big thanks to the 3 good folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, audio engineering, Susan Wilkin, all things show administration, Matthew Walding, all things graphic design. Another huge thank you to this week's show sponsor, the Gold Coast Marathon. If you are looking for a great event down under mid-year, then look no further than the Gold Coast Marathon, held on the beautiful coastline of the Gold Coast, Australia. There's an event for everyone, ranging from the junior dashes right through to the full featured length marathon. If you're into your running and looking to enjoy injury-free and fast running, and who isn't, then as a show listener, you can receive 50% off my running and jogging bestseller, You Can Run Pain-Free, and it's 330 pages of a 5-step method that I've used over my years as a treating physiotherapist. You can find that over at pogophysio.com.au, enter the shopping cart, and simply hit the promo code POGO2019 to receive 50% off You Can Run Pain-Free, now in its 2nd revised and expanded edition. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we drop the running shoes and we jump over to an area that so many of us throughout our lifetime will struggle with, and that is the shoulders. Next week, I'll be bringing you an expert edition with Gold Coast-based physiotherapist and researcher Jared Powell, and we'll explore all things shoulder injuries, rotator cuff pathology, and the mysterious frozen shoulder. So if you've had shoulder pain, or you know someone who has, and that's pretty much everyone, then be sure to be tuning in next week as we explore an expert edition. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.